may or may not be tired of hearing me talk about Colleen Hoover, but may I please just once more bring her up, because I did not know that Miss Hoover had her own TV show? Are you fucking kidding me? Confess is based on Colleen's 2015 book of the same name. By the way, I did read it before watching the show. We'll get to that in a second though. The most pressing question to me about this was, why has nobody else talked about it? I had never heard of this show until a few days ago when Caleb Joseph brought it up. Great channel, by the way. But this show has been out for 5 years. Like, where's the discourse been? Well, I'm glad you asked. The show has some pretty mixed reviews, at least according to the good people of IMDb, but that has never stopped the popularity of any of her other work, so I began investigating. I initially thought that this show aired on Freeform, and looking back on it, I have no idea why the fuck I thought that, but either way, I got super excited and I wanted to talk about Pretty Little Liars and Shay Mitchell, but my dreams were immediately crushed when I realized that this was actually made by a company named Go 90, and now I'm perpetually upset that I can't talk about lesbian Shay Mitchell. I watched Pretty Little Liars for the plot. So what the hell is Go 90, you might be asking? That sounds like a pill I could buy at a gas station to make my wiener go Apparently, it was an app created by Verizon, you know, Verizon like the freaking phone company, and it was basically like Quibi, but before Quibi, and even more dumb. Because at least with Quibi, they were like, oh, why don't you watch series in portrait mode? That would be cool, wouldn't it? With Go 90, they just wanted you to watch their original series on your phone, hamburger style, the way nature intended, like. And Confess premiered on this platform in 2017, right when it was on the verge of falling apart. Like literally less than a year later, it completely went down the toilet. And I was wondering why, in this era, Netflix or Hulu didn't pick this thing up. Because most likely, if this was on Netflix or Hulu, this would be talked about. And with these out of the question, who is gonna go out of their way in 2017 to purchase a subscription for Go 90? You know what? Save the money that you were gonna use to pay for this and buy a rhino pill instead. Probably more of a worthwhile investment. I also think that because this was before the Colleen Hoover renaissance of 2021, there was nobody seeking it out. But the last piece of this puzzle is what blows this wide open. Colleen Hoover, with her big, giant social media presence, you don't think she would have brought this up at some point again? Like, oh, hey, by the way, guys, I made a show one time. No. And I'll tell you why. It's because she doesn't want you to remember this. Episode 1 begins with a flashback to 10 years ago, and the main character, Auburn, is 16 years old and she's visiting her dying boyfriend in the hospital. His name is Adam, and she's seeing him for the last time before he passes away, and his family's kind of like pushing her out because they want to spend their final days with him alone and like not with her. And we quickly cut to present day Auburn, who is walking down the street in Los Angeles, and she sees a cardboard help wanted sign on a random door, and she's like, should I go into this odd building that has a very disheveled help wanted sign on it? Maybe I should. And I've actually seen this a couple times in Colleen Hoover books, and I'm just like, do you guys not have ZipRecruiter? Like, why are you just walking past random buildings? I'm like, that looks empty, that looks creepy, I'm gonna go in. But she walks up to the door and she's about to knock when this guy opens it and he says,
please tell me you're here to save me.
It's actually crazy that they would drop such a dookie dumper like 3 minutes into the show, because I felt that cringe down to my toes. My toes were curling. My little piggies were squealing. And then she just goes in. You're in LA. This guy could be a sex trafficker, or even worse, a male photographer. Once they're inside, he explains that he needs her to work for 4 hours at a rate of $100 an hour.
$400? Really?
Yeah.
This is such a fan fiction moment. Oh, you're gonna get paid $100 an hour? What's next? Is One Direction gonna adopt you? So this art studio that he owns is called Confess, and he explains that his ex-girlfriend flaked on him, which led him to being desperate to find somebody who could handle the sales of the art during his, like, exhibition tonight. These are all answers to questions that Auburn has not asked, by the way. I'm telling you this simply so you're not confused. This guy tells her to change into his ex-girlfriend's clothes and just get ready for the event. And when she's like, dude, I can't just like take my clothes off.
I mean, I can't just, like...
He shows her his ID, which makes sense because famously, everybody knows that if you have an ID, you're not capable of committing a murder. But yeah, this is how we learn his name is Owen Gentry, short for Owen Mason Gentry, which Auburn thinks is like the most funny shit she's ever heard. She's pissing herself.
Wait, your initials are OMG?
Also, this is like 10 times worse in the book because when she learns this in there, she's thinking to herself, oh, I wish she would make me go OMG all night. I'm serious. Auburn gets dressed, still not fully understanding what this job is or what she's doing, and she meets Owen's cat, whose name is also Owen.
What's its name?
Owen.
You named it after yourself?
Yeah, she reminded me of me.
And this is one of the most egregious changes in the show because in the book, there's like an actual cat. It's a real cat. So I don't know why they chose to make Owen a stuffed animal. It's so out of place. Like, were all the cat actors just booked that month? Also, by the way, before you get confused, Owen's gallery is literally called Confess because people leave confessions on the door and then he makes paintings based on those confessions. All of these confessions are visible all over the gallery and on the front of the door. But it takes Auburn doing all of this, putting drinks together and everything, to realize what's going on with that at all.
They're all confessions. Is this what people put through your door?
I honestly love the way that she operates in this world, like head empty, no thoughts, no concerns. Owen's ex, Hannah, shows up and says,
What the hell is this bitch doing in my clothes?
Auburn saved my ass.
Auburn? I don't care if she's Kate effing Middleton, okay?
dude, bare minimum, I don't care if she's Kate effing Middleton. I don't care if she's the queen of effing England, bro. I don't care if she's been dead for like 2 years. Get her out of my clothes. And this is when it turns out that Hannah actually wasn't even going to ditch him. She got stuck in traffic and her phone died, which Owen acts like he doesn't believe her, but she showed up in this attire, like she's in the correct attire, and he's literally hired this other woman to come do her job within like 45 minutes of her not showing up.
The 101 was a nightmare, okay? You know I'd never miss one of your openings.
And you have a phone.
It died.
So the art show begins and we get these sick little Victorious style pop-ups to let us know that all these customers are totally stoked on these paintings. Owen's dad also shows up and just immediately starts killing the vibe. Like he just starts roasting the shit out of him for being a trust fund kid.
Well, I sell enough to make a living.
Yeah, if you factor in the trust fund.
Which is kind of hilarious because he's the whole reason why he's a Nepo baby. We also learn that this guy's a politician, he's running for city council, and he also has a lot of resentment towards Owen for a lot of unidentified reasons. But it seems like he's particularly annoyed that Owen has put up a painting of his mom. Then we get a nice little montage of Auburn selling paintings to different clients, and one of these customers is Colleen Hoover herself.
Excuse me. I'd like to buy number 4.
Sure.
This is like one of those Stan Lee cameos in Marvel movies, but for sexually repressed individuals. When the show ends, Owen and Auburn start getting to know each other, they start flirting, and Owen is like, I just feel like I've seen you somewhere, I don't know, I just feel like I know you. He also tries to invite her out to dinner with him, but she leaves in a rush because she's like, oh my god, it's 10 o'clock! 10 o'clock! And she just walks away without explaining anything. We hear Auburn talking over the phone with someone.
It won't happen again, I promise.
And as she's walking away, she hears like a spooky little noise behind her. And this ends up actually being important, so just remember that. She left the studio so fast that she forgot to get paid, and she also forgot her clothes there. So her and Owen agree to meet up at her job the next day. Auburn works at a nursing home, by the way, which is also a deviation from the book, because in the book, she works at a hair salon. And there's no real reason for this change, so I think it's literally just so that they could add this horny grandma in the show. Everyone knows that the old ladies in a hair salon are a lot less horny than the grandmas in a nursing home. That's just a scientific fact, you can look it up. We see Auburn meet up with a lawyer, which is how we learn that she got pregnant at 16 and that her son is in custody of his grandma. She's trying to get full custody, but this lawyer is so expensive that she ends up having to sell her car to afford her. And the episode ends after her and his grandma, Lydia, get in some beef over a text message conversation because because Lydia's like, no, now's not a good time. You can't come over. And no offense to this actress, because maybe she's good in other things. Maybe she is just doing the best with what was given to her. But every time she's frustrated in this show or angry, she looks like she's still trying to be like cute. She scrunches up her nose like she's a quirky Disney character for some reason. And the nose scrunch isn't just once, it's in every episode.
This is going to be stressful, Auburn. For your son.
In episode 2, we meet a character named Trey, and his relationship with Auburn confused me for like 3 episodes straight because it's not elaborated on, and it kind of seems like he's her brother, but then he starts like touching her thigh and stuff, so I was like, oh, sweet home Alabama. He actually turns out to be Adam's brother though, which is still weird, but he's a cop, so I don't know. You can honestly just expect weird behavior from him. Owen shows up to her work to return her clothes, and she quickly reminds him that he shouldn't mix business with pleasure again because of what happened with him and Hannah.
I thought you learned your lesson about mixing business and pleasure.
So in response to this, he fires her.
Yeah, you're right. You're fired. Let's see.
And at first I thought this was a joke because like she obviously needs the money. But no, he's serious. Like no more making $100 an hour, sorry. She never works at Confess for the rest of the show. And I was actually shocked to find out that this was accurate to the book. I'm like, but him just straight up firing her is actually hilarious. Nevertheless, she agrees to the date, and Auburn shows up to his studio later that day and says probably one of the most repeated lines in all of rom-com history.
This is not a date.
I definitely do not like you. It's giving Sydney Sweeney. They have a romantic night in eating charcuterie and wine, which is honestly a big fat W because I love charcuterie, but their conversation takes a pivot towards them talking about their previous relationships. And Owen says that he didn't have much of a connection with Hannah, although they went out for 8 whole months. And he tells Auburn that they've already had more conversation than him and Hannah did throughout their whole relationship, alluding to the fact that they were too busy raw dogging to speak.
I knew we weren't right. I mean, we didn't have much connection beyond that.
Which is not comforting in the slightest. Like, this is the type of thing that might make you start supporting Pearl. Anyways, though, this causes Auburn to start making forced, quirky faces at him.
Sorry, I was really thirsty.
I can't tell you how many times I watched this show and just went, ugh, because her expressions just make me shudder. She excuses herself and goes outside to take a call from her son, but this call gets quickly interrupted by Trey, and he starts asking her all sorts of like weird questions.
I can't really talk. I'm at a dinner.
With who?
Owen?
You on a date?
Where are you? Are you on a date? Are you with Owen Gentry?
Why are you hiding that?
I'm not. It's just
Look, Auburn, you can do what you want. Just be careful.
He's jealous as rocks, which is really dumb because who are you? Shouldn't you be shooting rubber bullets into a crowd of innocent civilians right now? When she comes back inside, Owen is talking to his fucked up cat.
What do you think, buddy? Can I trust her?
And he catches a glimpse of her phone as she's putting it away and asks her what her wallpaper is. It's 2 hands touching each other, and she says it's a picture she found on the internet, but it's obvious that Owen recognizes it from somewhere. He quickly changes the subject and asks her if she wants dessert.
Would you like some dessert?
And you guys, seriously, I don't know how often I can keep bringing this up, but this acting! Katie Lurick, who's telling you to act this way? They start flirting and dancing around, and Owen tries to go in for a kiss, but she awkwardly excuses herself to go to the bathroom, and as she's walking away, the mic picks up her breathing hard as fuck. From that interaction alone, I would assume she's about to blow up my bathroom. Once she's inside though, she starts trying to convince herself not to have sex with him.
You're not sleeping with him. You're not sleeping with him.
Oh, but that's not enough. When she comes out of the bathroom, she announces that she's not gonna have sex with him.
I am not sleeping with you.
Are there some things we might be able to keep to ourselves? Throughout the show, we see a POV from a stalker, and this is someone who's just mysteriously following Auburn around. And I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's very obvious who it is. Like, there's no one else this could possibly be. But the next day, Owen wakes up and he sees a note on his doorstep that says, "Think you're some kind of hotshot artist? What would happen if everyone knew the truth?" Episode 3 begins with Auburn trying to pick out an outfit to wear on a date with Owen, and her roommate Emery is upset with the dress that she's chosen, rightfully so, but then she offers her a dress that's like 10 times worse.
This is gonna peel the paint off of Owen's canvas.
And that is gonna peel the paint off of Owen's canvas. I'm trying to think about how that line could translate to other careers. This is gonna do her taxes. As Auburn is looking at this fuck-ass dress, Emery can somehow assess that she hasn't had sex with anyone since Adam.
You haven't been with anyone apart from Adam?
I can always tell somebody's sexual activity based on how they look at things. Auburn is 21, by the way, and hasn't been able to spend that much time with her kid. And I'm not trying to say that everybody has sex like all over the place willy-nilly. A lot of people don't, but I've just noticed this trend with Colleen Hoover characters where the girl will be basically like virginal. Meanwhile, the guy is like, oh yeah, like he's been fucking all over the place. But her, she's innocent. Upon first watch, this was the episode that I finally realized that Trey was her brother-in-law, because his mom says this.
So would you rather end up with someone else or your son?
And I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God we're not about to have another ugly love situation. Later that night, Owen and Auburn were supposed to have a date, but he stands her up and she waits for him at this bar/restaurant for hours. Meanwhile, he's ignoring her calls. So she walks back home. She should really have her keys in between her knuckles. To make matters worse though, she walks past Owen's studio and she sees him in there with Hannah. When she gets home, she vents to Emery about this. And to be honest, I'm only mentioning this interaction because I wanted to show how awkward some of this editing is. Because there'll be like 5 whole seconds of silence between dialogue.
What a douche. Bastardo.
The next day, Auburn is at a diner waiting for Lydia and her kid AJ to show up, but instead, the only person who comes is Trey, and he's there with a bouquet of flowers. It becomes increasingly obvious that he's trying to hit on her, but she's not interested at all. And of course, he can't take a hint about this or see that it's pretty damn weird to try to hook up with your dead brother's girlfriend. And now he's kind of like ambushed her with a date because Lydia calls and says that she can't make it because she's stuck in traffic and AJ has a test that he needs to finish. Auburn ends up going to a club later that night with her friends because she's upset with this whole Lydia situation and also because she got totally screwed over by Owen. So we get a montage of them at the club and she's posting like 10 pictures straight onto Instagram. It's also the return of the victorious pop-up bubbles, which I love it. I love it. Emery says something very bisexual.
So you're gonna be lesbian?
No, I don't think I'd be very good at that.
Oh, I think you
And then Owen starts calling Auburn and she grabs her phone and she tells him their location.
Why did you do that?
because you desperately need action.
By the time he shows up, Auburn is sprawled out on the bathroom floor, laying on top of all those pee-pee molecules. She confronts him about standing her up and also having seen Hannah in his window. And his excuse is that she was just packing stuff up.
Well, she was just packing up her stuff.
Which would not be believable in 100 million years without further explanation, but he apologizes without any other added context.
Look, things are complicated for me at the moment.
She falls onto the floor and passes out. When she wakes up in the morning, she sees Owen's cat and she's in his bed, naked, covered in paint. She can't remember any of what happened, and Owen is in the living room getting yelled at by his papa.
Would you stop being so stubborn?
I am not doing this.
Do you know what happens if this comes out, huh?
She starts eavesdropping on their conversation before she accidentally stumbles and catches their attention, which makes his dad be like, ugh.
Really sorry, I didn't mean to
No, it's
intrude.
fine. Just leaving.
And Auburn goes through a very brief moment of freaking out.
Freaking out? What happened last night? I don't remember. Did we...
I mean, she was blackout drunk. This is serious. She's naked. He was sober. If they did anything sexual, then that's rape. But it's just played off for a joke. And I don't understand why they did this, because in the book, she wakes up with clothes on. So I don't know why they wanted the audience to wonder whether or not Owen raped her. He explains that they were painting together and then she started undressing herself, so he slept on the sofa. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. So he didn't rape her. I love that we had to wait in suspense for that.
Okay, but seriously, where's my underwear?
Anyways, Owen takes her home and helps like wash the paint off of her. And Emery flirts with him right in front of her face.
We meet again? Guapo.
Morning.
But she just doesn't give a fuck for some reason. And then we get into this painfully long hair washing scene. And I don't know why, but this grossed me out. Am I alone here? I mean, I just don't like seeing this so up close. The episode ends with Auburn taking AJ to dinner. And for some reason, Owen is just walking down her street, just walking around. And he sees her treating AJ like he's her son. They make eye contact. Auburn doesn't say anything and just drives away. Lydia wakes up Auburn after having fallen asleep with AJ on the couch, and she's like trying to get her to leave the house. It's the middle of the night, obviously she just wants to sleep there, but Lydia isn't having any of it and brings up that she can't even take care of AJ because of her mental instability.
Auburn, you can barely take care of yourself. This is what is best for AJ.
And she's like extra pissed because Trey is a little fucking snitch, and he found out that Auburn is talking to a lawyer about getting full custody, and then he just spewed that information onto Lydia. And so Lydia is like,
I've got a lawyer too.
okay, Audrey from Twin Peaks, settle down. She walks home and she receives a text from Owen that says, "Get me over." Are you into young men? Sir, that is a boy? A BOI? Meanwhile, he's got his shoes on the damn bed. Figures. We cut to Owen in an AA meeting of sorts, and he's telling these people in the circle about how he never thought he'd see her again.
She doesn't know who I am. We didn't even speak back then. But it is no coincidence that she knocked on my door.
These people are addicted to alcohol, and you're in the circle being like, yeah, I met this girl once. She was pretty cool, I guess. I mean, I didn't really meet her, but that guy's gonna start drinking again if you keep talking. Auburn visits her lawyer, and she says that she needs to get a child psychiatric evaluation for AJ. Side note, I had to change my shirt because I don't know if this ever happens to you guys, but if I wear a bra with a certain shirt, it just starts cutting into my armpits like a razor blade. Sound off in the comments if you stand in solidarity with armpit cutting shirts. After this, she meets up with Trey to confront him about telling Lydia that she was going for full custody. And what I think is so funny about this is that she waited until after they got to this location and got food together to bring this up. Like, they had to drive to get food, go to the park, and this whole time she was like, I'm gonna talk to him when we get our food.
Your mom knows about the lawyer.
I know.
How could you do this to me?
I didn't mean to.
Trey's excuse for this was that he was looking up custody cases online, and then Lydia came and used the computer after him and saw the search history. But what in the 2010 is this? Are you using the family computer to look this up? How would this make sense? Like, use your fucking your fucking Android to look it up. He also tells her that Lydia wants a full-on battle for this. Like, she is not gonna make it easy for Auburn. And so, wouldn't it make sense for us to be together? And then out of nowhere, he just proposes to her.
Marry me.
Marry you?
Hear me out.
The words marry and hear me out in the same question is crazy.
I like you, Auburn. Always have.
His reasoning is that it should be easy for her to get custody of AJ if they just get married, since he's a cop and he's financially stable.
If you and I are married, you'd have a husband with a good job. You could stay home with AJ full time.
She points out that this is obviously weird as fuck, not just because she's never considered him romantically, but also because this is Adam's brother.
You're Adam's brother.
Exactly.
We don't see Auburn's reply to this, and we cut to her out at dinner with her friends, and she's telling them about how Trey proposed to her, and she even says she might say yes, but for some reason they have no reaction.
Trey proposed, and I might say yes.
I'm so sorry, Alex.
It's okay, there's nothing you can do.
What do you mean? You're telling me this wouldn't be scandalous as fuck? Have you ever seen girls talk about drama amongst their friends? Like, whoever wrote this show has, like, never seen girls interact about this kind of thing. There would be like, whoa, 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 whoa. There'd be a reaction for sure. Owen turns out to also be at this restaurant, and he's low-key dressed like he's part of the mariachi band, but she quickly gets under the table to hide from him, and he just walks over, obviously seeing that she's under there, and he confronts her about not answering his texts, and he's like, I don't care if you have a kid, like, that's fine, that's cool, I like MILFs. But she just stays silent on all of his concerns and all of his questions, so he's like, okay, I'm out.
I get the hint. I'll leave you to your friends.
She thinks marrying Trey is the right choice for AJ, but to be honest, this is kind of dumb as rocks. Why would you want to be miserable every time your kid comes over? And secondly, and this is actually the biggest thing for me, like, okay, these are, I guess, like, pretty valid concerns, but if money is the issue, Owen is a rich man. He's rich as sin, and his dad is a lawyer. All the answers are right there for you, and if you're wondering if they ever come to this conclusion in the show, the answer is no. Never at any point are they just like, oh yeah, like, just be with me and we'll sell a bunch of paintings and we'll afford the lawyer, or you could just have my dad be your lawyer. How about that? Is this book like written in crayon? Like, how did this get published? Her friends say none of this very reasonable advice that I'm saying right now, but they convince her to go to Owen's place anyways. She shows up, they have sex, and they show his butt. This shouldn't be funny, but I'm immature. Afterwards, he starts rubbing her belly in bed and touching her C-section scar. And I don't know why this scares me, but it does. We get a montage of Owen and Auburn hanging out together, but when she takes him back to her apartment, Trey is waiting in there, and as soon as he sees Owen, he's like, what are you doing here? He tells Auburn that he arrested Owen 3 weeks ago for possession with intent to sell.
Look, it's not what you think.
I busted him for possession with intent to sell. He's going to court next week.
She's shocked and she asks him if this is true. She's like, Owen, are you the plug? Trey says the most bald-headed tough guy shit.
You have 5 seconds to get the hell out of here.
And without asking any questions, Auburn tells him to leave.
Just go.
Like, you're not even gonna hear him out? You're just gonna stop talking to him completely? No questions asked? What if he was just selling Zaza? Does that change anything for you? And Owen tries to call Auburn to explain himself, but she ignores all his calls. Do you not have any sympathy for incarcerated individuals, or are you too busy making Disney faces? In episode 5, we cut to 3 months later, and we're treated to some very lovely copyright-free music.
Oh, watch this.
Auburn is being insufferable as per usual.
Can Auburn Reed win the championship for the 3rd time?
And Trey is even worse because he's trying to pressure her to move in with him. And I guess off screen, she accepted his proposal already.
We see each other most nights now. Why don't we just move in together?
I kind of want to wait till we get married.
Hard cut to Owen, who seems like he just got released from jail. And again, we didn't see any of that. We didn't see any of his trial, nothing nada. But we do get an explanation as to why he stood Auburn up on that date all those months ago. So the reason Hannah was at his apartment that day is because she was dropping off some Oxycontin, after which she actually did stay behind just to collect some of her belongings. And Owen gets a desperate call from his dad, who has crashed into a gate somewhere and he's like drunk as hell. So Owen shows up, gives him the bag of oxys, and he takes an entire handful of these things with alcohol. I tried to look up how much Oxycontin could kill you, but Google kept just giving me a bunch of suicide prevention numbers, so I can't really tell you, but this seems very dangerous, if not life-ending. They're obviously in some kind of dead-end clearing, but somehow cops arrive to investigate them, and so they get out of their car, and one of these cops is Trey. He asks both of them to step out of the car, and Trey starts smelling Owen.
You smell like a Macy's beauty counter.
I have a date.
Fellas, is it gay to smell good? He threatens to arrest Callahan, which is Owen's dad, by the way. Sorry, I should have mentioned his name earlier. But he's threatening to ruin his career as part of the council and also get his law license taken away.
Possession of a Schedule II narcotic with intent to sell. There goes your council race.
So Owen ends up taking the blame for him.
Shame you won't be able to make your date tonight.
I don't want to hear any mention of the news shirt because I don't have an excuse this time. But Callahan tells him that if he keeps his head down, that he'll get out of jail in 6 months. Everything's gonna be free. Everything's gonna be awesome.
I'm gonna make sure that you're protected.
But Owen is like stuck on a big old rock, like get cucked because he's just over it. Like, so now I'm just gonna go to jail for you?
I'm gonna visit you when it's possible.
Yeah, don't bother.
But also it's kind of like crazy that he was supplying his dad with these Oxycontins. Either way, just crazy. But we flash back to present day and Owen is just gripping his Owen cat and he's filled with regret. Auburn is at home with AJ when she hears her stalker driving around outside. And we get a POV from outside of her house that's like goblin height. Like it's literally from the height of a little tiny duende. I'm not sure why they filmed from this angle, if it was supposed to be a guy in a car staring out at her, but who knows? Maybe she has two stalkers. Maybe one is a human and the other really is a duende. Trey comes over to investigate the whole stalker situation and ultimately tries to pin it on Owen since he's like, oh, he got out of the jail recently. It must be him.
This has gotta be him.
Later that day, Owen visits Auburn at work and the horny old lady is like just foaming at the mouth for him. And they're having like a senior home little dance party or something, so he's trying to talk to her. Meanwhile, the horny grandma's like, oh, here's my chance.
Look, I'm sorry I know how much I hurt you. I didn't want to involve you in any of this.
When they finally do get the chance to dance with each other, though, Owen reveals some critical details about his past. And of course, why his dad was zooted on that fateful night. Basically, his mother and his younger brother, Carrie, died in a car accident when he was 19. And he was the one driving the car. So it was just him and his dad who survived. And the dad, obviously being very depressed by this whole situation, ended up getting hooked on opioids. He still doesn't explain that he took the fall for his dad. He's just kind of explaining his origin story. Also, this is totally unexplained, but he just knows that she's engaged to Trey now.
Are you engaged?
Yes.
Trey?
Like, okay, sure, let's save ourselves some time, but don't you think that it would have been more dramatic if we saw him find that out? But anyways, they stare into each other's eyes, and then Owen departs, leaving the horny old lady to howl at the moon like a werewolf. And in the next scene, we see that Trey is still trying to convince Auburn to move in with him and has even been looking at houses to buy. And we already knew that Trey was a freak, so this isn't that surprising, but Lydia is literally there in the kitchen. She like witnesses them like cuddling each other and shit. And I'm just wondering why there's not more pushback from her on this.
Well, don't you look like the cat that swallowed the canary?
Like, even in the book, she has no opinion on Auburn and Trey's relationship, despite the fact that she was Adam's girlfriend. And number two, her getting with Trey just means that she's gonna get full custody, which is not in her benefit. Like, none of this benefits Lydia. So why would you be just like, oh yeah, that's cool, you guys get married? She doesn't even like Auburn.
The cat that swallowed the canary.
For the rest of the episode, Trey just continues being like a little baby bitch boy, and he says he's going on a 4-day cop seminar thing. So Auburn's gonna be alone for a few days. Ooh, what do you think's gonna happen? The episode ends with her leaving a confession on Owen's door. Some freaking hogs are about to collide. Episode 6, we see Owen reading the confession that Auburn left under his door, and it says, every time he touches me, I think of you, which causes him to show up at her house and confront her about what's really going on with her and Trey. Like, why are you guys together? What's the hubbub?
I am happy.
Really? Do you love him?
And she tries to dodge that question quickly.
I have ice cream in here. It's gonna melt.
But in her defense, She does have ice cream, and it will melt. And of course, he's trying to convince her to do what she actually wants in life and leave this unhappy relationship. But what drives me absolutely nuts is how unhelpful Owen is, again, with this whole situation, because he holds the keys to solving her whole entire problem. Like, not only that, and here's the part that gets me the most, oh, this gets me really mad, is he went to jail for his lawyer dad so that he could keep his law license. And wouldn't the perfect thing to happen be, oh, Papa, listen, you owe me one. You owe me one. I did that for you. Help her out, pro bono. Wouldn't that make sense? His dad is running for councilman. You're telling me a politician who rakes in like thousands of dollars in donos probably, there's no way that he can help us? Whatever, dude. These people are too fucking stupid. Okay, relax. I take it back. I've been trying not to be as mean. Whatever, dude. He compliments her on her motherhood, and then they have sex. And unfortunately, this time it wasn't funny because there was 0 buts. Afterwards, he tells Auburn to just break up with Trey and be with him already, and shockingly enough, she says yes.
We can figure everything out with AJ. We can make it work.
But then... Oh my god. This is on par with Bella Swan's lip biting, only this is 1,000 times worse because we don't have the cool Washington aesthetic or Bon Iver and Radiohead soundtrack in the background. So they're hanging out in bed when AJ runs up to the door, which surprises both of them, and Auburn panics because she knows that if AJ's here, that means Lydia is also here, and she can't see Owen in here with her. So Owen hides, and she goes out there to talk to Lydia on the couch. Meanwhile, AJ wanders off into the house, and for some reason he goes into her bathroom and whips the shower curtains open really fast. And this is where Owen was hiding, but I'm just really confused like what his motivation was to like whip her shower curtains open really fast. But either way, he says,
You look weird.
Lydia hears the kerfuffle that this made and goes to investigate. And when she sees Owen in the bathrobe, she's like, who is this guy? What the hell? So he lies and he says that he's Emery's boyfriend, causing Emery to magically emerge from her room and literally start making out with him. I don't understand why Auburn is just so cool with her friend doing this. Like, she flirted with him before and then now she's just like straight up kissing him when it's like unnecessary. But either way, Lydia believes this, at least temporarily, and the two head into her bedroom. Later that night, without explanation, Lydia confronts Auburn about Owen not actually being Emery's boyfriend, and she basically is just like, I'm not gonna let you around AJ at all if you're hanging out with your convict boyfriend. And this causes Auburn to break it off with Owen again. Then we get a really long montage of Auburn and Owen being sad. This thing goes on for over 2 minutes, at which point I started feeling Stockholm syndrome and just began enjoying the song. I just... You work magic like no other. Meanwhile, Owen is painting this huge picture of her, and when he's done, he leaves his studio and drives away, and 0.3 seconds after pulling away, we see a hooded figure sneaking in. This is something silly and goofy that I find in so many shows. Like, why does nobody ever wait more than like 1 second before breaking into somewhere? Like, but who else could this hooded figure be but Trey? Surprise! Is anybody here surprised? Literally, who else would it be? Back at Auburn's house, Emery is trying to convince her to come out to a party with her later that night, but Auburn doesn't want to because she doesn't want to be a third wheel to Emery's date. And dude, Emery says the funniest shit right now.
2 hot ladies on his arm, he's gonna think it's Christmas all night.
Christmas all night? Emery, darling, what does that mean?
Strike that. He's Jewish, so Hanukkah all night.
Thanks for clarifying. Later on, Trey comes over and he's pissed because, of course, he was the one who broke into Owen's studio. He read all the confessions, one of which was hers, and she's also been ignoring his calls, so he's going nuts. And when he hears her phone buzz on the table, he snatches it up really fast, and he reads a message from Owen that says,
I think Trey knows. What does he think I know?
He reads her confession out loud to her.
Every time he touches me, I think of you.
And then he proceeds to slap her and try to her. Luckily, she manages to push him off her, but he still doesn't leave without threatening her.
Better get your shit together, Owen, or you will never see your son again.
Get your shit together. My brother in Christ, you are in a forgettable face competition and you are winning. Also, it's worth noting that in the book, Emery comes out of her room and threatens Trey with a gun, and that's how he ends up leaving her alone. And in the aftermath of it, Emery is there for her, which honestly, I think was the better version because the dynamic between them as friends could have went deeper. But moving on, episode 7. Ooh. Last episode, baby! Auburn is at Owen's house and she's visibly shocked and has a black eye. Owen tries to convince her to call the cops, but she doesn't want to because Trey is a cop himself. She also doesn't want this to interfere with her engagement to him, since she's already been promised full custody if they get married. But Owen tells her, like, how does it make sense to have AJ around someone like him? And she's blaming herself for the situation, but he convinces her not to go down that slippery slope, since he blamed himself for the car crash that killed his mom and his brother, and he did for years, which led him to enabling his father's addiction and ultimately having to go to jail for him. They have sex, and then after, she starts putting her clothes on when she feels a pair of arms wrap around her, and she assumes it's Owen at first, but then
Can't even tell which man has their arms around you.
Trey.
Save it.
Owen comes to the rescue, and this scene isn't funny, but the dramatic vine boom feels kind of goofy to me.
Love you despite all
Let
of
it
this.
go.
In an attempt to make Auburn look bad, Trey reveals why Lydia ended up getting custody of AJ.
She went crazy after AJ was born. She didn't want him.
And basically what happened is that she had postpartum depression, and it caused her to not be able to like look at her baby or take care of him in any capacity. She was also only 16, so that didn't help, and she ultimately checked herself into a mental hospital to get better. Him and Owen get into a scuffle, and then he calls his little pig buddies to come help him out.
Code 2, officer in need of assistance.
And he also reveals that when he broke in earlier, he planted drugs all around Owen's house, so they need to comply with what he says or he's gonna get him bagged with a bunch more charges.
You set him up? I will tell them! We will fight this! We will fight this!
Even Owen tells her to just go along with what he says because he could end up being in prison for many years. He gets arrested, and then we fast forward to the next day where Auburn and Trey meet up at a diner and talk very loudly about framing Owen.
When I came in, Owen attacked me. Are we clear?
She finds out that he's the one who's been stalking her.
You're the one who's been following me?
Not that that does anything for the story at all. Even crazier though, he's still trying to get her to be with him.
You have a chance at a real life with me. Grow up.
But wildest of all, after all this, they still eat together?
Let's order. You only have an hour and I'm starving.
Auburn calls Callahan to be her lawyer, and they meet up with the custody people. I'm sorry, again, I don't know what to call them, but during this meeting, Lydia still insists that Auburn marries Trey.
Auburn, I gave you everything you wanted once you married Trey.
Again, why? She truly has nothing to gain from this, but Auburn ends up revealing that she recorded her and Trey's loud-ass conversation at the diner, and Trey's over there just like, duh.
Here's exactly what you say.
He has no idea what to do, and Callahan comes in and he's like, I'll give you a deal. Give Auburn full custody of AJ and drop any charges against Owen.
And this little recording will never see the light of day.
Which, by the way, I'm not sure if this is how any of this works. I don't know how realistic or unrealistic this is, but you can let me know in the comments. Like, could these people truly relieve Owen of all the charges and give her custody based on that? I mean, cops don't get fired for shit and dick anyways, so I just don't see how this would really work. Lydia has a Freudian slip and says she needs to think about what's best for Adam instead of what's best for AJ.
I have to be certain that this is what's best for Adam.
And it's just so weird because she obviously sees that Auburn is all bruised up. She hears these recordings of Trey. She sees that Trey is hurt also. Like, her story completely lines up, but she's not concerned about any of that at all. Like, why are you not concerned with your son being beating a woman. But whatever, this works out. Owen gets released and him and Auburn have a reunion. And an important thing here is that Auburn finally tells him where the picture with the hands came from. And she says that Adam drew it for her and it was the very last thing that he gave her before he died. But that's not the end of it, because we get a little plot twister. And you better get ready. You better take your socks off because they're gonna fly off anyways. We get a flashback to 10 years ago, just like the one that we saw in the very first episode. And we see Owen at his dad's bedside after the car accident. And this is in the same hospital as Adam. He looks down the hall and sees Auburn being pulled away by Trey, because just like we saw earlier, she was trying to stay with Adam longer. Owen draws the sketch of the hands and decides to give it to Adam since he's right next door. And Adam loves the drawing and asks him if he can mail it to his girlfriend. And in the present, Owen doesn't tell Auburn about this because he wants her to continue to believe Adam drew that for her. And I'll have to admit this to you, as I have admitted many times before, I am corny as hell. I'm cornier than a cob. I actually really love romance and heartfelt moments, and that's never my problem with this sort of media. So I actually liked this ending. If it wasn't for all the other things, that was good. It's almost like eating a sandwich and the whole time it's disgusting, and then when you get to the last bite, you're like, oh, I like that last bite. There was something different about that. Anyways, so that was Confess. Please never mention Colleen Hoover to me ever again, at least until the It Ends With Us movie comes out. But as always, let me know what you would like me to do for the next video. I'm always looking for more ideas. So yeah, special thanks to my patrons. You guys are freaking amazing. The link is in the description below if you want to join the Discord. It's super fun. We have a cute little community going there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.